Welcome to Live Your Legacy, where every story holds a turning point, and every turning point holds the power of legacy.
Welcome to Live Your Legacy, a Miss You Grand production where we explore how life's defining moments shape us. I'm your host, Patricia D. Fortenberg, also known as Patty from New York, have to say it this way. And this show is rooted in one simple truth. Grief isn't always about death. Sometimes it comes through change, loss, reinvention, transition, and the moments that call us to become more. Legacy, not only what we leave behind, it's what we are shaping right now through vision, impact. Welcome, J.C. Doornick, also known as the Dragon, a transformational speaker, author, coach, host of the top 5 educational podcasts, Make Book, and is also known for helping people rewire the way they think, respond, and lead their lives. His work is focused on behavioral change, personal agency, and turning obstacles into catalysts for growth. Dr. JC, welcome to Live Your Legacy. How are you at this moment? Thank you for being here. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. I see your mute button.
I was just singing the song. I just can't get the sound of that jingle out of my mind. I walk around all day long, and I'm not kidding. My family doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I just say, "You got to live your legacy." I'm doing great. Good to be here.
It is. There's something about jingles, right? They stay with me, even my childhood jingles. Thank you for that. Thank you for a little shout out to Live Your Legacy jingle. I appreciate that. So in this show, we're not here forever. So we're going to get just right into it. Would you agree that hindsight is always 2020 or close to it, Dr. JC? Would you agree with that statement?
Well, you know that at this phase of my life, I don't really think I know anything for sure. So I would say maybe. I like to live, part of me living my legacy is not feeling compelled to know anything. So I would say it's an interesting way of looking at life. Hindsight is 2020.
Good answer. I like it. I like it. Well, we're going to jump right in. Can you take us back for a moment and share with us a pivotal moment that changed the direction of your life work or your life or work, both?
Yeah, it's a long story and we probably don't have too much, so I'll use the short end of it. I usually introduce myself when I have the speaking engagements. I usually open up by saying, "Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. JC Doornick, and I'm a recovering bullshit artist. And I've been clean for 18 years. And that's my story it wasn't my fault, but throughout my childhood, into my teens and into my college years, and then when I started my profession, I just kind of thought that I knew everything. I was like a kind of a know-it-all, and I was what everybody would deem to be a very confident / cocky person. I'm pretty certain that most of the people that I have become friends with and collaborated with in this current reality would not have liked me at all back then. And I probably wouldn't have given a shit about that. So I would say that the most pivotal thing that ever happened to me was also the hardest, darkest thing that's ever happened to me is people warned me when you're moving through life as a know-it-all and you're cocky and you think you're better than anybody else, smart people will always come up and say, "You're going to hit a wall, buddy." And I was like, "Don't tell me nothing. You know, I can climb walls. I can bust through them. I'm not worried about walls." But I did it. I hit a wall. And one day I just had what most people would call like an identity crisis. And I lost my confidence out of nowhere, lost my confidence and just started really being pessimistic and depressed and all of that stuff. And it was very frightening for somebody that was so confident and crystal clear, certain of everything. And I had so much pressure on me and I didn't even know it because I was acting like that. And it was, for the most part, and I think a lot of people would resonate with this, it was too much to bear. I call that the deep darkness of despair, to the point where I started contemplating taking my own life. You know, I mean, and this happened within like a week of just being who everybody thought would be one of the most successful assholes out there. And all of a sudden, I didn't believe myself, and I only saw one way of proceeding, and that was to not proceed and just to turn the lights off. And the reason why that was a pivotal moment is because when you go through very hard times in life, most people are trying to avoid hard times. Um, but when you go through really hard times, I'm talking about real hard times, it's a sink or swim situation. And I was making a decision that I was going to sink. I chose sink, but I had some people that cared about me and pushed me to kind of look at things from other perspectives than mine, which was very hard. And it was this moment, and this is the beginning of my book. It's called The Snap. And I was sitting in front of a therapist, and she took me through a series of questions that I didn't want to be there because all I wanted to do was just check out. But she took me through a series of questions and led me to this place where she helped me remember a pivotal moment in my life. And it had to do with my parents getting divorced and my birthday and things like that. And she helped me make the connection, that moment where I was on the train, where I went from super online and confident and cocky to this deep darkness of despair. It was around my birthday. And I started to make sense of things. And this is where the whole brand of Make Sense came from. And what was interesting about that is I only went and saw this therapist once. You know, I went from complete darkness, and then I walked out of that therapist's office. I don't even know her name. I couldn't tell you where she was or anything like that. But I went from offline, completely checked out offline, right back online. And the reason why that was such a pivotal moment, Patty, is that in that moment, I made two very big, what I call quality decisions. And a quality decision is when Martin Luther King talked about the fierce urgency of now. I made this decision because I had to make this decision because I had just experienced a new breath of life. And if you've had a near-death experience and you come back to life, you're full of gratitude. You know, I've been carrying this rock around. A lot of people don't know this, for 20 years. And you can see it says gratitude. I always reminding myself of it. Always have it with me. But I made this decision that day, first of all, that I was going to dedicate all of my time, energy, and focus to find out what happened in that office, how this woman was able to make a distinction that made me go completely offline to back online. And that was the first thing. So that was when I became my studies and research into personal growth and self-development and human behavior, which led down the road to figuring out this thing called the interface response system in my book. But the second thing that I did was I made a lifelong commitment to teaching other people, helping other people, serving other people that were experiencing confusion, darkness, all of that stuff, lack of confidence, self-worth issues, all of that stuff. I decided to spend the rest of my life helping them make sense of things. So that was the birth of me recognizing that I no longer wanted to be a workaholic. I no longer needed to be the best. I no longer needed to know everything. So I came up with this concept of as everybody knows, and that stands for haven't made up my mind about anything. I no longer need to know anything. And everything's changed. I found my passion, my calling, and my destiny was on course, and I haven't stopped since.
Wow. That was great. You might have answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just in case. Just in case. What challenge would you say was a blessing in disguise? What was that, Dr. JC? Yeah. Our connection's a little wonky today. But you might have answered my second question. I'm going to ask it anyhow, just in case. What challenge would you say was blessing in disguise?
Kind of shared that story, so
technical issues.
I could refer to that story and say that was it. But I would just say in general, what that story taught me is that all challenges were blessings in disguise. I'm in a place now, we all know that growth takes place outside the comfort zone. Everybody kind of knows that, whether they want to play with that or not. When I was young and I was really confident, I used to hear people say that saying that, and they go, life sucks and then you die. And then I realized, you know what? It's true. Life does, for the most part, suck, and then you die. But that doesn't mean that you have to have a sucky life. It means that if you can learn how to embrace and navigate and find joy in the hard things in life and the challenges and the setbacks and the letdowns, you could have a wonderful life. If you can learn how to dance in the rain or find the eye of the hurricane, you'll have a wonderful life. If you can't do that, you're only going to think that your life is being judged or amounts to the little victories that you have along the way, which are very small and seldom. So I would say, to answer your question, all challenges show up as a blessing now. I've already faced 4 or 5 challenges today that I used to suck my thumb about, but now I get excited when there's a challenge because I know what's on the other side.
Thank you for that, because for some reason I'm having the technical challenges today
Yes,
that, I
exactly.
certainly could suck my thumb about, but I'm not going to, because we're going to get through this, right? We have some love here. I just want to share from Anja. Anja, we met on the Clubhouse platform. I know you host a few segments there once a week, rather. I love the concept of, and I haven't made my mind up, and I love it too, Anja. So thank you for sharing the comments and the love. And we got some more comments here, and I'm not sure what that is.
I love that. I just want to say
So,
something.
thank you for
I love
coming in
when
and sharing.
I just want to say, I love when
Tell me.
people comment in some sort of Arabic or other language. And what are we supposed to say with that? Say, oh, thank you so much. That's a huge distinction. I appreciate it.
Yep. Same. Same. So the next lineup is this. Who, and again, it might have been the person you spoke about, but who has been the most memorable mentor in your life and why? And I know that's a loaded question, and you could share more than one, because oftentimes there is more than one, but who comes to the top of your mind?
First of all, I feel like everybody is a mentor. I feel like this episode with you is mentoring me right now. But in my book, in chapter 11, and you'll see that the foreword of my book was written by a guy named Dr. Larry Markson. And he was the first mentor that this recovering asshole ever allowed to mentor him. What I'll share is like the crux of the story. When I first met Larry, and this was when I was kind of still in that cocky mode, right? I first met him and I saw him up on a big stage, just commanding the crowds. And I just said, man, I want to be that way. I want everybody to love me like they're loving him and everything. And I was broke at the time. I used to have what you call a laughing wallet, meaning every time I opened it, it laughed at me. So I had no money. And this guy was basically selling like life coaching package and all of that stuff, which I didn't have the money to pay for. So I just, boom, I put down a credit card like an idiot because I couldn't pay the credit card back. And I worked my way through his system to be mentored by him. And this guy was charging, at the time, he was charging $1,200 a month. And I didn't have the wherewithal to pay $100 a month for mentorship. But something, I was listening to the universe, and something just told me, go for it, right? There's a lesson there. But what Larry did for me, and this is in chapter 7 of my book, this was one of the biggest moments of my life. Once again, at the expense of being demolished by something. So he asked me these questions, and I challenge anybody that's listening to ask yourself these questions. He said to me, first of all, I was talking all the time. I hired this guy to mentor me, and he just sat there and let me talk for 15 minutes. And finally, he says to me, he goes, whoa, 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 whoa. And he stopped me from talking. And I was like, nobody stops me from talking, right? And he goes, did you hire me to help you? And I said, yes. And then he says, I don't want to say the word, but he says, shut the F up then. So that was the first thing he did, is he shut me down. And nobody had ever did that to me. So I was like, oh my God, what's about to happen? I'm paying this guy. He's yelling at me now. So he looks me in the eye and he asked me 2 questions, Patty, that changed my life forever. He said to me, he goes, tell me something. What do you think people think about you? That was the first question. And now, as you can imagine, my answer went something like this. I said, I would say about 50% of people like me and the other 50% don't. And he goes, well, what do you think about that? And I go, F them, screw them. And he laughs and he goes, I thought you'd say that. And then the second question came, and in my book, I call it the Vulcan pinch. Like in Star Trek, Spock used to just pinch people and they would just go paralyzed. So he comes in and his next question, he goes, let me ask you a question. He says, what's more important to you, to be right or kind? And that, I get the chills even when I talk about it now. That took my entire house of cards down. Because in that moment, it was the first time that I woke up. Forgive me for I knew not what I do. I realized in that moment that all I ever wanted to do was be right. And I didn't want to hear from anybody else that said anything different than me. And he made me realize that was why I was stuck. So I made a decision to start being kind. And that doesn't mean being so sweet and helping people. What it meant was shut up and listen more than you talk. Care before you share, right? Seek to understand before being understood. And anything else that's happened, all these other amazing mentors, God, I've coached with some of the greatest people out there. All of that would have been a waste of time if Larry didn't give me that foundation.
Wow. That was definitely. And again, you want to learn more about it, you want to hear those stories, because you got quite a bit of stories in here.
I do.
By the way, this kind of book is the kind of, again, it's really a book. Thank you for sharing that mentor with us. What was there a revelation or lesson in your personal motto, right? Your model that helps guide your journey? Let me ask again, was there a revelation, lesson, or personal motto that helps guide your journey?
Yeah. There's two.
I think I know it by heart, but I'm not going to answer your question.
I only feel a lot of pressure, but can I have two mottos? Can I say two, or do I only get one? Do I get two? Do I have two?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
All right. So these make up the tenets of my Make Sense ecosystem. I think it's important for people to have some sort of a motto, as you say, to just remind yourself from time to time some very important things. So the first one I got from Wayne Dyer, and that was, it's when you change the way you look at things that the things you look at change. And that was a really important distinction. Holly Totten says, this is some good stuff. It's actually some good shift, Holly. So this concept of saying, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, what it says is that if you're looking at the world and you're seeing it in the wrong way, which is because your brain is programmed to see things a certain way, and you don't like your current reality, what you need to do is change the way you look at it, and then it will change. So if you look at my whole story I shared before, that's what happened with this therapist. She gave me the ability to look at things from a different perspective, and everything changed. So that's the first one. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's not mine. The next one was, I started to realize that all human beings, we're all the same. Nobody has a better opportunity in life. But two people from the same background go out and they get different results. I was very fascinated with that. So what I realized is that it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. So here's what that means. What it means is, if you're the person that's out there working hard, if you're not doing anything, you're not getting anywhere. Maybe where you wanted to go was where you are, right? But if you do decide to contend for your goals and dreams, and you've set a goal, your North Star, and you find yourself out there working and not finding any forward progress, not getting any ROI on things, it's not because you're not capable. It's because you're not the right person for the job yet. So if you look at personal growth, self-development, it's all about gaining clarity. It's all about gaining clarity in your life. So in our Make Sense ecosystem, we always say, we go after clarity before action. We live in a world that says action. We want action. Go, grind, grit, persevere, fight through it, keep going until you win. That doesn't work. It might work, but it takes a long time. If you start by gaining clarity and you evolve into the right person for the job, all of a sudden you'll naturally, almost like in a flow state, start winning. So it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. So when somebody complains to me that they're doing all this work, I say, well, your problem is that you're focusing too much on the do. And if you put two do's together, that says do do, you got to go back and focus on the who.
Wow. Sorry, that was good. I didn't see that one coming. The first one I've heard you said, I've heard you say so many times because I'm a follower, I'm a fan,
Yeah.
and I've heard you say the first one so many times. And I'm like, I have a feeling it's gonna be that one, but thank you for sharing the second one too, because the second one is like really part of the pun, actionable,
Yeah.
sort of say mental action anyway. Right. So thank you for that. So what would you say to your younger self, Dr. JC? What would you say to your younger self?
I would say chill the fuck out and be patient. That's what I would say. I would say settle down, buddy. Like
Nice.
life is a process, it's a journey. You don't have to be the best. I would say the reason why you're doing all of this stuff is because you have a low self-esteem, and that's okay, right? It's okay to not be okay. That's what I would say to him. And the other thing I would say is, and by the way, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares about all this stuff that you're doing and all this stuff you say you know. Nobody cares like you think they care, right? So enjoy the ride, keep the main thing. And I would have told, I say, you know that all you really care about is being a good friend, a good father, a good husband one day. Those are the things that matter most to you. Focus on those things. Everything else is just stupid stuff.
Nice. Those are really nice. So again, this kind of parlays with that question, but what would your future self hold on to, Dr. JC?
What would my future self hold on to? Is that what you asked?
Yes.
Huh. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, hanging in there. But what wisdom would you want your future self to keep holding on to?
Just to continue not listening to what society is laying out and explaining success equates to success. Stop listening to the voices in your head. They're just voices, just like clouds. They come and go, they pass on by. You are the dominant force and shot caller of your life and reality. You can decide to have a good day any day. You can decide to have a bad day any day. And I think that I would just say continue to not care about things that don't matter. That's what I would say hold on to, is that ability to recognize I don't have any control over that. And I don't know if I even care about that. So my new focus right now, Patty, and I'm writing a new book on this, is I'm just fascinated with how careless human beings are with what they care about. So, I always wear this funny shirt. It says, breaking news, I don't care. And people laugh at it, but it's the truth. I really don't care at all about
Yeah.
things that don't matter or things that I don't control. And a lot of people get pissed off at that. I don't watch the news and all of that stuff, and people hate that about me. But I only care about my daughter going to the prom this weekend. I only care about my wife and this new painting that she did. And I'm so proud of her, and my health and my good friends. Everything else, I just could care less. So that's what I would hold on to. Just continue to not care about stuff that doesn't matter.
It's good wisdom. It's good wisdom. We got some feedback from your share before. Whoa, we're human beings, not human doings.
Yep.
Thank you, Anja, for that. Thank you, Anja,
Makes
for that.
sense.
Coming around the bend here, with the show. Again, we're here with Dr. JC Doornick, also known as the Dragon from Make Sense Academy, and check out his book, Make sense, available on Amazon. What does legacy mean to you personally, Dr. JC Doornick?
Figure when you come on this show, that's
What
going to
say
be one
you
of the,
about legacy?
that's one of the questions, right? We're always going to get the legacy
That's
question.
right.
I would say that
That's right. I'm going to put your quote right up here.
I would say that my whole life and all of the time, energy, and focus is about legacy. Because I'm very acutely aware of the fact that when I leave, most of the stuff that I'm spending my time on now doesn't come with me. We know that whole story. So I like to look at legacy as a footprint. Like when you're walking through the beach, there's certain elements of the beach where you can put a footprint in it, it'll stay. Some elements it'll get washed away. So I always ask myself, what footprint will I leave behind me? And what is the value of that footprint? And I think about my career, and I'd love to say that my systems and my make sense stuff and everything that I've accomplished lives longer than me. But for me, because of my value system, my legacy are my children. It's such an interesting thing because I used to think that my goal was to accomplish something in life and leave that as my legacy. But what I find myself doing, I've got a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And I find myself devoting 90% of my time, energy, and focus to being a good father, a good mentor, a good friend for them, and setting them up to do something greater than I did. So I look at legacy for me at this time. I'm never really sure about anything, but this is what I feel now. My children are my legacy because God willing, when I die, I'm going to leave them behind and they're going to do a better job than me. Everything else is silly.
Nice, nice. So this one also is like the icing on the cake for that question.
Okay.
What do you hope people remember you most? What do you, or the work you've done or how you served?
I would say what I work on the most, and I've got a lot of work to do, I hope that people remember me as the guy that was always there for people. I hope that because all the stuff that I do to help people requires one of the most important traits that we have in relationship building, and that is trust. It's very hard to find somebody that is loyal and trustworthy and things like that. So I would hope that my eulogy, I hope people say that I made them laugh. I would hope that people say that I made them think for themselves in a world that's doing the thinking for us. And yeah, that'd be great if they say, and he accomplished this and he accomplished that. But what I hope most is that people say, you know what? JC was the guy that was my unconditional friend, even when I was not a good person or I was going through some tough times, he never quit on me. And I would say that would be the coolest thing to be remembered by, because I know what it's like to have people bail on me when things are not so great. And that's why I take such pride and joy in being a really good friend, a really trustworthy friend, a good father, a good husband, a good mentor, and all that stuff, because it gives me the opportunity to show people what it's like to have someone never quit on them.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I could attest that. We believe very good in the Dragonfly podcast academy. So thank you for that one. And thank you for being so transparent. If you could do it all over again, we're having technical issues here today, but that's okay. If you could do it all over again, would you change any or every part of your journey have purpose?
Would I do it differently, you're saying?
Yes.
I know
not
that
sure if you can hear me
everybody, I know that the answer that you're supposed to say is no, I
clearly,
wouldn't change.
but if you
I
could
wouldn't change a thing. But the truth is,
all
I would,
over again,
yeah, if I could do it all over again, I would do everything different, just so I could have the opportunity to experience life from a different perspective. I would change everything.
I like That's one of a kind because most people say no. So this is really interesting. I like that answer. So that was really great. That was really great. This is our signature question here on Live Your Legacy. What is something about your journey that most people would be surprised to learn? So, Dr. J.C. Doornick.
Oh my God. I don't know how revealing I want to be right. A lot of things, but what a lot of people, I think a lot of people are shocked when they find out how deep I have gone with my personal growth. I'm not super public about it, but I've been for the past 6 years traveling to the Amazon jungle and working with plant medicines and all kinds of stuff like that. So I've done some pretty radical, I've taken some pretty radical steps to find out what else is going on in reality. I know that people now are like, yeah, he seems like the type, but I would say that would probably be something. And then outside of that, I think everybody would be shocked to find out that I have two unusual hobbies. One is that I play the harp, and then the second is that I know how to crochet.
What?
How about that? Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
You wouldn't know for sure. Really great. Thank you for sharing that. And some of that, the first answer you gave us is in this book, people. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, for me, you got to read the book. And it's towards the end. Check it out. It is really interesting. It's like a purge, right? But again, another topic, another day. Read the book. Dr. JC, also known as the Dragon. Where can we find you? I'm gonna give a little quick, a little show everybody right there. But where can we find you? Tell us about your show and a little bit more about the Make Sense podcast, if you will.
The Make Sense podcast, as you can imagine, is all about providing a conversation and some world-class guests that allow my listeners to look at some of the most common, interesting things that human beings deal with or contemplate from an alternative perspective. Most of the guests that have come on my show always tell me that I'm a great interviewer and things like that. And the reason why is I'm asking them questions that bring something, an alternative perspective to the mainstream version of what they typically talk about. So Makes Sense is all about giving people this ability to reclaim control over their thought process, because we live in a world where, whether we know it or not, we're conditioned to look at things and think about things in a certain way. So by showing people an alternative perspective on things, and it makes them go, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. What they don't understand is, in that moment, they've just reclaimed control of their thinking. They're thinking for themselves. So that's what my show really does. And I think that's why it's had such great success. And then that translates into my book, because that's the core blueprint for all of the work that I've done, all of my stories leading into this interface response system. And I also, for 20 years, have been a health transformation coach. I've helped hundreds of thousands of people lose weight and reset their metabolism and things like that. So I'm very passionate about helping people restore physical health, because it's on a healthy body that a healthy mind rests. I think a lot of people skip the physical part and they just go right to personal growth and financial success, and they skip the physical. And then, because you're one of our all-star members, my partner and I, Julie Loken, we've started something called Dragonfly Podcast Academy, where we're teaching people to do what we're doing. I'm a full-time podcaster now. I'm, working from home, making a great income and getting paid to share my creativity with large amounts of people. So we're teaching people how to do that in the Podcast Academy, from somebody that's never had a podcast or somebody that has a very big show and they've never made $1 off of it. So we're teaching people how to do that. So that's all I got right now. And I'm writing some new books. And if people want to follow me in my ecosystem, whether it's YouTube or Substack or any of our school platforms, you can pretty much find me by just looking up things that have at Dr. JC Doornick at the end.
Yeah. I just want to reinforce that you share really great gems, and your show shows really, well, when you have guests, they're always amazing. But when you do your lives on YouTube, I know you also have them on replays, but you really challenge the person to do an inward journey. And I love that. I love that very much. And the conversations and the chats are always wonderful. And you're real, information we could use for our betterment. So I appreciate. Before we get out of here, thank you for sticking marks before we get out.
I'm not sure I heard what you said, but maybe it's time for me to say thank you.
We're having a delay here.
What was that last
was that?
question? What was the last thing you
Could I have
said?
a closing remark, Dr. Jace? The last question is, can you give us a closing remark?
Oh, okay.
A closing remark, a bye-bye remark.
A bye-bye remark. I would say learn how to sit in silence and get reconnected with your signal and not pay so much attention to all the noise in the world. You're not required to pay attention to all the noise. It doesn't make the noise go away. You can watch and take note of all the noise in the world, and there's a lot of noise, but you don't have to participate with it. So I would just share, remember that anything negative, any of the noise in life never requires your permission to show up in your life. It shows up whenever it wants, but it does require your participation to stay. So don't feel that you have to participate with everything that comes your way. You get to choose. So very often when people ask me questions or say something mean to me,
Nice.
I don't
That's
answer.
empowering.
I don't even answer. I remember this one guy said something mean to me and he was waiting for a reaction. And all my reaction was, And then he says, well, what do you have to say about that? And I said, I don't know if I give a shit about it. And just like a cloud, he went away.
That's great. That's great. That's great. That's empowering. And I love it. Thank you again for sticking around. Whoever watched the live, check out the replays. Will drop on Thursdays morning. And again, this was Dr. J.C. Doornick. One more time, follow him at Dr. J.C. Doornick, and you will be very satisfied. Thank you again for being on the show. And with that being your book available now. And I'll see you soon. Take care.
In every turning point holds the power of legacy. Every step, every scar, every choice we make leaves our mark. The time only is where vision comes up.